angel laughing. His voice is clear and bright. The angel's wings unfold, wrap around my soul, and time is gone away. Floating through the night, a sparkle in his eyes. No longer can I stay. Kiss him and I'm gone. Oh, welcome once more to episode of reflections with the Course in Miracles, reflections of our own mind in communication and in contact with Him. And this is really a welcoming of the light of heaven, the welcoming of our awakened Christ mind within ourselves, the welcoming of the love of God. That also on the 50th day of the mind training is the expression and of the remembrance what actually sustains us here and is really the most important or the ingredient of our sustenance, and that makes us what we are, that makes us be at peace, that makes us communicative, and that makes us in a remembrance that goes far beyond remembering something, remembering ideas, objects, including remembering stories or images, experiences of our own awakening experience. So this welcoming that Jesus gives us in that remembrance that we are sustained by his love is really our remembrance of what has been given us, put into our mind in creation itself, and therefore is yours, is mine. And so we are talking here about wholeness, we are talking about everything. And I want to come with that lesson because we all share how it is expressed in the lesson. We share common um, worldly conceptual remembrance of what we considered that would sustain us, that would keep us in place, that would keep us going. So we are all who walk time space in the active integration and literally undoing process of these ideas that only bring force or show up in limitations. And he talks about that we put our face, we put our face in 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 most trivial and insane symbols. And he gives us a few perspectives which basically sum up safety, security issues, the prestige, and being someone special, and certain powers that we believe we would have, and could basically apply in order to manipulate the association surrounding us in a successful way, so that we could determine, yes, I'm on top of that and I have everything under control, right? And not to forget, he also touches here the sense of comfortability, how the human mind is arranging itself in order to stay in a comfortable state of mind in relationship with his world. And his ideas that he offers there, this idea of being safe, for example, is to maintain the body identity, the condition of the body. And he puts it right there. And he says, bills, money, protective clothing. And then he comes to these power ideas, influence, prestige, being liked, knowing the right people, and an endless list of forms of nothingness that you endow with magical powers. This is actually our inheritance. This is the inheritance of the human consciousness that we are bringing with us since the beginning of time for many, many lifetimes, and has all these things, all these ideas have allowed us, and not just allowed, but literally pushed us to really ask for a solution, and that asking for the solution was the asking for the waking up from the dream. And that asking for waking up from the dream is, I would say, is really the most important quest that we shared with each other. Like the moment I share with my world, with you, the necessity of the human consciousness to wake up from this dreaming. We are here in the message given by Jesus Christ as supplements to A Course in Miracles called the Gifts of God. And in this third section, we are already diving in since last time. It's called the ending of the dream. And we will make a configuration or let it flower to the perspective that we live this dream, this world, by being in service, in help to Him, to the Holy Spirit, to God Himself, to Christ Himself, Him who is our master, our teacher, our healer, the consoler, right? The one who walks with us home. And unless we have a deep sense of being used and being in service to Him, there will always be within the mind the perspective and necessity to continue in the dream and continue with limited aspects of, as we were just sharing it, of this myriad of ideas, of symbolism, literally in the symbolism of being somebody or something that is still in limitation, right? So our faith was placed in limited ideas, and now we are allowing that to replace with the love of God. And therefore, it is a huge recognition. And I have all the reason to talk about this today because I have an anniversary day which I wasn't even so aware of unless I kind of a certain calendar made me aware that the 19th of February for me is an anniversary of my awakening, because at that day, 29 years ago, I had kind of an end sequence experience, an ending of the dream experience, in which I literally lost my perspective and configuration of being that self that could call himself, this is me and I am that and I'm thinking this and that. So it was basically the dissolution of this false ego I sense that every human being suffers from. And this happened to me in that context of Christ also in as this universal presence in manifestation of the Holy Spirit and literally the light of God Himself in Eastern association that I called in form Punjaji or Papaji in Lucknow, India. And so that day, 29 years ago, actually was the peak of a sequence of awakening experiences, which I had at that time already for almost 7 years, starting before with near-death experiences in under anesthesia, and was also a very culminative experience then a year before that in a complete experience of oneness with all selves, with the entire universe in my mind. And all that had to come to a point where the power of that light, of that creative light, was allowed to expand and to show in myself, in my mind, this immense, yeah, essential, I would say, essential recognition and experience of not having or not being in an existence that could be observed or could be noted by means of perception, not even inner perception. There is only what is left is the pure knowingness of literally, there's only the presence of God. There is no observer, there's no observed. There's just a being in that without an experience, you would say. And of course we call that experience capitalized or experiencing or knowingness. Knowing is a good expression. But in the Course in Miracles, the introduction already says that this course is not concerned about that. It is not concerned about love, because this is something that goes beyond our comprehension in any way. And it's how does it say? The Course doesn't aim at teaching the meaning of love, for that is beyond what can be taught. But it does aim at removing the blocks to the awareness of love's presence, which is our natural inheritance. So just to remember that. And in the lesson 50, as a celebration lesson for my anniversary idea, sharing that with you, that this is a real occurrence that isn't, that I can't put, okay, that was 29 years ago, and that was more than 30 years ago, but it is really an eternal presence in the here and now. And it explains exactly how Jesus explains it also in that lesson, when he then says that only the love of God will protect you in all circumstances, and it will lift you out of every trial. But for the trial, it needs a perceiver, right? For the trial, it needs objects of perception, But we gotta be lifted out of that. That is really that awakening experience, and raise you high above all the perceived. And he goes back to that list that he was mentioning, all the perceived dangers of this world, into a climate of perfect peace and safety. And that is realized the moment we are in full communication. We are that. Full communication means we remember who we are as God created us, that it is peace and safety in Him. And it will transport you into a state of mind that nothing can threaten, nothing can disturb, and where nothing can intrude upon the eternal calm of the Son of God. So those are the words which are kind of nectar that we are sharing today. And thank you for being here, and thank you for accepting that as your own remembrance, and you yourself remembering your own awakening experience, your own reconnection with the holiness that you are, in which you were created. And so, maybe I could actually even read something if I find it, otherwise I leave it. Because I did actually write it in that one book, if I remember it, and it's also in the other book. I would need to literally look for it, but maybe I can do that pretty fast. If otherwise, I just leave it. It doesn't really matter. And so, what I also wanted to share in that context is that the journey is always an ongoing journey. There's never really an end to it unless it is the end, right? But if it is the end, then there is no need to be here or to even be of help, as I expressed it, in order to experience the ending of the dream. But it really just becomes a flow of a continuous, constant remembrance in the sense of, okay, I'm grateful that I have been given like what we call a mind training, and I'm very grateful for being able to understand that and literally follow that guidance as given in the lessons of a day. And so that guidance that's given is also a guidance how to be helpful. But the only real way to be helpful is to wake up from the dream. Okay. And that waking up from the dream is not really an occurrence on the timeline that we put then on the calendar and basically choose, but it is our remembrance of who we eternally are. And that is, yeah, that is really what is offered us, and that is what we can share and uh, um, what we yearn to share, literally. Okay, I think I have it right here. And that, yeah, I'm kind of not really here prepared. It's just however it comes in. But it is still a very nice remembrance. And the interesting thing is that I did know at that time about the Course in Miracles, and but I didn't use it yet. It was there as a memory. Okay, this is really for the Christian mind to wake up. But I didn't consider myself at that time that I would represent Christ mind. I was completely in Eastern philosophies. Yeah, that was for me the most important uh, and the direction, the focus. But how it came in then as also as how should I say, as being in service and of help was really through this Course in Miracles. And interesting enough, it was kind of pretty much 7 years later, if you're looking to these cycles, of that anniversary date, and a little bit less than 7 years, where I also came in contact with that representation of the Course in Miracles that I know as Hector or Daddy, who just left time space. And so this encounter with him also showed me that I'm coming from a full awakening experience. There's also a way of completely reasonably express that experience or bring that experience through reasonability with the higher mind, with the mind of the Holy Spirit, to an expression that allows the mind to simply let go of limited thought forms and join in that ongoing um, light of heaven, as I call it, right? So that encounter, or that seeing how reasonable mind can express and does express itself, became so attractive to me that I also decided to go deeper in that reflection, in that allowance to be reflected of my true self. And of course, a few months later, I found myself in that reflection of myself called the master teacher. But see, those are not really figures of personality, though we know them from pictures and from their own expression of the help and service and work that they gave to the world. But in truth, we do remember them only as not being in a body, as being the eternal light reference of ourself within our own mind. So here's a description that I made. I mean, there's of course so much more, but there's one of these descriptions that just in a few sentences that I can give here um, to bring it in or to try to bring that into words. Though this is very difficult, of course, né? and and I better normally I better don't go there in a demonstration that it would mean something. I would rather present it as an expression of uh, how a poet receives ideas in his mind and has no need to make here a point or to kind of bring it to a teaching that is supposed to be followed. Now, I'm just going to say that because that is very important to me, not to reduce it in any way. Okay, so I'll just give here a few sentences, right? And the revelation of this great awakening makes it completely clear that in truth there is no world. And this is what I wrote down as one of those many, many expressions I did at that time. Pure light in different colors surrounded all, and the tremendous silence overwhelmed me. It felt like the whole universe would collapse into me. Therein, not even a feeling of body or thought could take place. Such was the revelation and splendor of that awakening, experiencing everything as being myself. There was, as here is, absolutely nothing here of form and name, and yet not nothing, not anything, but all there really is. All light, the creative force in all, consciousness itself. I am as God created me. Yeah, thank you. Well, that was a little a little excerpt from that what I like to share today or at this day, and of course always in that gratitude of um, expressing and seeing that um, there isn't really something that I could say about the awakening once the observer is gone. But what is left in that literally um, last action of leaving the dream is the clarity of being completely in service as help for him. And unless that is individually an experience for ourselves, as I said before, we will not rest in expressions of love, in expressions of forgiveness, in expressions of compassion, showing compassion, in expressions to accompany each other home and giving each other a hand in the perspective of all is fine in the kingdom, let's go home now. And this is really how we left it the last time in this ending of the dream that Jesus gave as a supplement to the Course in Miracles, which we share in these days. And so we left it the last time by saying, "For I'm not a dream that comes in mockery. Salvation needs your help as well as mine." This is Jesus' words, directing me, directing you, that your help is needed. Salvation needs our help, as he gave this help to the world too. Do not forget, you do not answer for yourself alone, he says. Let's not forget that we are not answering for ourselves alone. Next paragraph. My call to you is that you offer help from all the dreams the Holy Son of God imagines. From the time that first of dreams was given false reality until all dreaming ends forever. And this is the reference also that I gave with in contact with lesson 50. I'm sustained by the love of God, So from the time the first of dreams was given false reality, we have given false reality to the dream, and until all dreaming ends forever. All right. There will not be a world to be seen. There will not be any figures, not sinful or holy figures, because a figure is still a figure and therefore meaningless. But what he really expresses here is that there is a call, and this call is from out of time, and that it is the call to me, to you, to all of us here, to offer help. And the help should be to awaken from this dream, or you could also say to reinterpret the dream into a happy dream, because it is that happy dream that comes from making contact with a solution, with an alternative. The moment I'm using an idea is given in the workbook lessons to apply or to remember how I see the world in my mind. Okay, I'm sustained by the love of God. That gives me a complete release. I don't need to be concerned or preoccupied about anything. I can be completely at peace and relaxed if I accept that I'm sustained by the love of God. And so these are the necessary actions of mind that we comply in order to allow that undoing, the disappearance of the world, which is literally the disappearance of my own limited meanings that I have given to this world. There isn't a real world out there. I only see what I held and projected in limitation. Okay, let's continue. Next sentence. Could a gift be holier than this, than to bring all dreaming to its end? And could the need within a world of dreams be more acute and more compelling? There's always a need to look at the necessity. This is a necessity. This is important. This is completely necessary, that the world of dreams finds its dissolution, its disappearance, its release, we could say, its relinquishment. Give me help in this. This is Jesus inviting you very personally, me very personally, to give him a hand. Give me help in this, and not one gift the world may seek to give, or one illusion held against the truth can bind you longer. See, that is what we receive. We receive a complete freedom from anything that is illusionary or part of the ego thought system, that of course will eventually always try to bind us in time space, in that sense of existence in time space, but that will bind no longer. And that means an illusion is recognized as an illusion, and therefore is realized that it doesn't have any reality. It's not true. It is really just imagined, hallucinated, he says, isn't it? Time can have no sway upon you, nor can any law of earth have power over you. Time can have no sway upon you. You are no longer bound by time. That means also you do not be concerned about a time sequence getting older and eventually dying. All you have and know to be is this very moment, this here and now, and this is all there is. Nor can any laws of earth have power over you. The laws of earth, the laws of the world are becoming powerless over you, which is also the powerlessness of the ego thought system. You see, once the mind is focused only on what is of God, what is divine, what reflects that that we are as Christ, then there is no law out there in its limitations of the world that can still bind us. And that is very important to include in these times of seeming threats of pandemic, of war probably coming up, to see, oh my God, those are laws, those are reflections of the laws of the world. And I'm no longer part of that. I don't need to concern myself about that because it cannot affect me. Your hands will heal and give the gifts that you accept of me. What an expression, isn't it? Our hands, or that one hand, you could say, will heal and give the gifts that we accepted of him. That is very beautifully expressed. There is actually also a similar expression at the very beginning of the course in the first chapter when he says, you will see miracles through your hands, through me. See, the miracles will work through our hands, through him, through Jesus Christ himself. That's the good news, you know. And give the gifts that you accept of him. How joyful and how holy is our way when death has no dominion and the dream of separation, agony, and loss has been dispelled forever. Here he uses the word dispelled. That would be also, it just disappeared. It just left you. Those are the symptoms of the ending of the dream. And how joyful and how holy do we recognize our way on that way home. And it is the way when we realize that death has no grip over us anymore, when death has no dominion. And the dream of separation, the dream of separation is the dream of the ego I, is the dream of an self-existing I. And that is the narrative within the human consciousness, but that is the lie. That is the ultimate lie. That dream of separation, of agony and loss, is only as strong as much nourishment you give it to it, and as long as you hold it dear for you. But the moment you give it to the Holy Spirit, the moment you ask for the undoing, it is simply, he uses the word dispelled. It is simply let go. It simply vanishes out of our mind. Thank you. Thank you. Do not think that anything the gifts of fear hold out is worth an instant's hesitation when the gate of heaven stands before you and the Christ of God is waiting your return. Your own awakened mind is awaiting you home in heaven, okay? Waiting your return to heaven. And of course, there isn't any worse of an instant's hesitation. We don't hesitate any longer. We are going all the way home. This is all that we give to the world and so to give to ourselves. When the gate of heaven stands be open before us, and the Christ of God is waiting our return. Be still and hear him. See, these are the other instructions. We just had that in lesson 49 also, just to be still and to, how did he express it so beautifully? Listen in deep silence, be very still and open your mind and go past all the raucous shrieks and sick imaginings that cover your real thoughts and obscure your eternal link with God. You know, these were just hallucinations, and now we are in that being very still, in that open-mindedness. We are going beyond that. So here he expresses it. Be still and hear him, his voice, the voice that speaks for God. For his call to you could not be more insistent nor more dear, for it is but the call of love itself. This is what reminds us also that we are only sustained by his love, by the love of God. There is no other sustenance for us. And so it is also the call for love itself, which will not cease to speak of God to you. This will not stop, right? This voice will continue until all the world is dispelled out of your mind. Thank you. You have forgotten, but he is faithful still, because he is so like his Father. He remembers him forever in his love. See, all that was the problem was that I have forgotten who I am. I've forgotten where I belong. I have forgotten that there is no word, and therefore there is no such thing as an ego either. But he is faithful still because he is so like his Father. He's talking about the Son of God as Christ, right? He remembers him forever in his love, and he cannot forget creation is inseparable from Creator. So he understands that you are part of God and of the Son created like himself. So my mind is part of God. So I'm very holy. We are part of God. We are part of Christ consciousness, but we are not a fragmented part, but a whole part. So the whole part is then what that holiness expression is, what that remembrance is, that is still in our mind as the only reality reflecting the light of awakening. Thank you. Thank you. So creation is inseparable from Creator, right? You are a perfect creation of God Himself. You are inseparable from your Creator, God Himself. So now go in peace and remember that uh, there is no in between. You know, uh, there is no compromise to that. We cannot settle for less than the entirety what has been given us literally reflecting what we are in truth, right? Yes, again, as I said in the beginning of this, we cannot speak. I have in truth no words about that, but I'm immensely grateful. Whatever that presence is guiding me and reminding me constantly, because the remembrance is it's not this, and it's none of what I could think of. There is only the love of God present here. And this is what, if there is a notion of sustenance, that there is an I that needs sustenance, then it will be that love of God and cannot be anything else. So with that, I leave it for today, and I'm just blessings, blessings, blessings. Thank you for sharing with me this day of anniversary. Yeah, but it's anyway, it's a present state of mind, isn't it? I love you with all my heart, and I see you beyond any form and beyond any concept. I see you out of time. I see you as that love and light and happiness in which we all were created. Thank you, my brother. Here are the last sounds we're gonna share, okay?
Wonderful memories, and the dream is over, the final curtain call. The sun is setting now, for the very last time, time and time again. It's the beginning of what can never end. It's the beginning of what can never end. Never end.